Yeah, can you see my screen, right?
Yes, Akash.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining today with us. This is our 10th webinar. Today, we are going to discuss about what are the new features that we have in Postgres 14. Yeah. And this is about myself. I am Akash, and I am the database reliability engineer here at MyDBOps, and I am having 4 years of experience currently focusing on MySQL and Postgres databases, and also worked on performance tuning, troubleshooting, and replication topologies for these databases, and also written blogs on these databases and featuring performance improvements and features of these Postgres and MySQL. And this is about us. We are MyDBOps. We are Bangalore-based startup founded in 2016 with two people team. Currently, we are having more than 70 plus members across many countries. And we are providing database services on MySQL, MongoDB, Postgres, MariaDB as well. So far, in past 5 years, we have assisted over 500 plus top companies, including payment gateways, medical-based companies, and also mission-critical application databases as well. And also, we are a certified AWS partner and PCI certified organization. So here at MyDBOps, we are providing the services in two formats. One is in consulting, and the other one is managed database services for all the databases, including MySQL, MongoDB, Postgres, also MariaDB. These are some of our clients, which everyone may know: Flipkart, Swiggy, Nykaa, Dream11, and so on. Okay, let's get into our topic today. Today, we are going to discuss on what are the major features which is released in Postgres 14. Postgres 14 was released on September 30, 2021, which is exactly 1 month before what was released. Previously, 13 was the major release. Really, it has a lot of features, more than 200 plus features, and with a lot of bugs as well fixed. As per Postgres, right, every quarter, it means that every 3 months, minor release will be done. Minor release will contain only the bug fixes or security improvements. There won't be any changes in minor releases. And every third quarter, it means that either September or October, we will have major release. Major release, we know it will be like Postgres 15 or 16, like that series. Maybe next month, next year, 2022, September or October, we will have Postgres 15 as well. This is the release pattern by Postgres. Okay, now what is new in Postgres 14? There are a lot of features. I have classified into following. One is what are the enhancements made in server side, and Postgres improvements in query parallelism. Query parallelism is already introduced in Postgres 10 itself, but there are some improvements made in this version as well. And what are the improvements made in security level? And here also there are a lot of features for application developers as well. So usually that makes their code logic very simple as well as easy for the migration. And what are the enhancements made in monitoring? So monitoring, in the sense, they have made a lot of system use new it's introduced. So it basically helps to understand deep more our database. And what are the enhancements made in PG stat statements? It is a really useful extension in Postgres. So let's see one by one. So first, server side enhancement. So important one in server side enhancement is reducing B-tree index bloat. So bloat is always a problem in Postgres. Whenever bloat, first we need to know what is bloat. So let me explain. In Postgres, whenever we are having dead tuples, it is called as bloat. If you are from MySQL background, you may know what fragmentation in MySQL. Here we would say it as bloat. So whenever you are performing update or delete in Postgres, it instead of making it delete, what it will do means, consider you are performing an update means it will just mark the pages delete and insert a new record. And if you are performing a delete means it will just mark the tuple as deleted only. It won't actually delete it. So those dead tuples will be there and it is considered as bloat. To remove those bloat, Wacom is introduced. So what Wacom basically it will do means it will scan your table from top to end with all the pages and mark that tuples removable and make it reusable from upcoming data. So this is what Wacom will do. Well, there will be definitely a lot of problem if we have bloat, usually slowness. What it means that consider you are having 20 records in your table and you need to fetch from 1 to 20 means in 20 out of 20 you are having 10 dead tuples. Considering that, you will face slowness because along with the original tuples you need to also read dead tuples, which is really unwanted. So it will cause slowness first thing, and unnecessary pages you need to pull to RAM. Basically, if you're same thing, you are fetching 1 to 20 means you need to fill all the records 1 to 20 including dead tuples. So it will make less room for the pages which needed by the database. These are the problems with bloat. So to avoid this, there are a lot of improvements made in Postgres since its beginning itself, because of the Postgres underversion logic, they can't completely remove this one, so they are trying to mask it basically. So first thing they did to avoid bloat in index level is heap only tuple. So in version 8.3, they made this introduction heap only tuple. It really did this job very well, because what is the problem before 8.3 is you are just updating another record. Let's say you are having let me explain with this example. We can easily understand. Consider I am having a table with two columns, ID and name. Okay, and I am having index on column ID only, and I am updating my name X. Okay, consider my first record, you can see name X is there. I am going to update my name X into name A. Okay, what it will happen, Postgres will mark the name, that column ID 3 and X will be deleted, and it will insert a new record. That means that it will insert a new record wherever the space is available. It may be in the same block or some other block, it will insert it. Now you could see my index is there, right? Index is still pointed to the older record, which is completely invalid, because now if you're fetching it is invalid only. So it is pointed to the dead tuple. So what it needs to be done here, before 8.2, my index also needs to be updated to update this record. So index also same logic, it needs to be delete and insert again. So it will mark as dead. The third one is mark as dead, and again it will introduce a new record. So without, I didn't do any changes on my index column or anything. I just updated the column which is completely non-indexed, but my all indexing also getting bloat. This was a serious issue at the time. So to avoid this, Postgres, what they did, they introduced heap only tuple. So it means that same logic, two columns and the ID column having that, I am updating same again with the X and the A. So instead of doing changes on index, what they did is they made a pointer on tuple level. Okay, so my tuple, that tuple will have pointer to the new tuple. So I'm not going to change anything on my indexing. Okay, so let's say I'm going to fire something, select stop from table where ID equal to 3 means it will still point to the old dead tuple, but it will have pointer. Which will point to the new tuple. So it will scan first thing and it will again point to the second one. It will go on like this. If I consider, if I am updating again ASB means it will again create a pointer to that. So it will go on like this from X to A and A to B, like that pointer will be there. So it needs to means we need to scan really lot of dead tuples by pointer logic, but we will completely avoid bloat in our index. This was the improvement made in Postgres 8.3. So after that, what they did is they introduced one more logic, that is skilled index tuple, which is really a performance improvement to avoid index bloating. So to explain this, I have tested this scenario. One is, like, consider I am created a table with auto vacuum disabled. So just disabling auto vacuum to avoid triggering of vacuum. That's the reason. And I inserted a huge number of records, and I deleted nearly 80% of records just to test this scenario. And I just executed only analyze. I didn't perform vacuum. I just executed only analyze just to update the index statistics. So, and I just tried to execute a simple select query it with explain analyze. So you could see my execution plan during the first iteration is 95 millisecond, and shared hit is 7284 pages. So I'm executing the same query another time. You could see my shared hit is 2196 pages only. It previously first execution it was 7000 Now it reduced to 2000, and my execution time is reduced to 3 millisecond. Before that, it was 95 millisecond. So what is the reason behind the performance improvement in first and second execution is completely different. So it is not completely because of shared buffer. While because people may consider while executing first time, it was in discrete needs to be done, while executing second time, it will be completely cached, so it is faster. But in this scenario, it is not the case, because while I am performing delete itself, all my pages will be in the cache. And while performing my first execution, everything is from the cache only. There is no discretes. But why still there is a difference in pages is, while I'm executing the first select itself, what it will do, it needs to completely scan all the pages, including the tuples as well, which is deleted by this scenario. So let's say I'm having 8,000 pages means I deleted nearly 5,000 pages, so only 3,000 pages left. While during the first execution, it needs to scan all the data, all the pages. And what it will do means it will mark it as killed. While I am doing the second execution, this query, it will just skip the killed pages, killed tuples. It will just ignore the killed tuples, and it will only scan the remaining tuples. So that is the reason it is executing faster when compared with the previous one. So considering in case of in production servers, if you are doing some huge deletes means, your first query post after deletion means it will definitely become slow, because it needs to scan all the record, all the pages, even dead pages as well. So after that, the second query will become faster, that because the previous first query will mark the pages as killed index tuples, and a second query will make use of it. It will just ignore it. So that is the reason we are getting performance improvement by using killed index tuples. So now what is the improvement made in Postgres 14? They have introduced bottom-up index tuple deletion. What it means is, previously we know, right? It is just made index as killed. It won't just skip it. But Postgres 14 onwards, instead of killing, it will just also delete it. Previously we know vacuum only delete the dead tuples. But here Postgres 14, even our select query, which is just scanning through the dead pages, will also delete the index entries and make bloating very less. So that is the improvement made in Postgres 14. So other than this, next one is replicating in progress transaction, which is the performance improvement made in logical replication. So here is the scenario. We could see this is the basic model. So before going to the things, we need to know how the replication model works. So publication subscription model, we are saying the replication model. Source, we are saying it as publisher, and destination, we are saying it as subscriber. We need to configure what are the tables that needs to replicate in publication side, and the credentials, source server details, everything in the subscriber side. Once we created the publication, what it will do, source server will spin a new vault sender process, and vault sender will decode the tables which are configured in the publication and will only send those data to the logical sender subscriber. Basically, subscriber will apply it. This is the concept, the way logical replication basically works. So what is the problem with this is, so before that, there is one more thing. They had introduced logical decoding workmem, which is introduced in Postgres 13. What it will do means, it is a memory parameter to limit used by vault sender. Consider vault sender, I am setting this logical decoding workmem as 100 MB. Okay, and I am processing a transaction in my publisher as 10 MB means, it will send to the vault sender process. Vault sender process will completely use 100 MB. It will process completely in the memory itself and send it to the subscriber. So same scenario, consider if my transaction size is 10 GB. What it will do means, my logical decoding workmem is 100 MB means, it will process 100 MB in memory. Then it will move the remaining to disk in the same server, local itself, split to disk. Then it will again process another 100 MB. It will do the same until the complete transaction completes. Then finally, it will move the everything, I mean, every complete chunks, right? 110 GB transaction to the destination, and it will apply there. What are the problem is, it will cause huge replication lag, because we are completely sending the entire transaction in a single chunk and apply over there. So this is the reason, if you are processing huge transaction, we will get replication lag, and also the network traffic will be very high because of sending huge packets. If it is okay, you are on the same network. If you are configured across the different DCs, it will be really a bottleneck. To resolve this, in Postgres 14, they had introduced a new thing that is called streaming in progress transaction. Whether you are committed the transaction in publisher or not, just stream it to the destination. So this is the way it works. So instead of spilling it to the disk, it will stream the 100 MB chunk to the subscriber as well. So once we are committed on master, so subscriber will just apply it. So there won't be any transfer of data at the time of commit. So it will save really a lot of time during the time of commit, and it will greatly reduce the replication lag as well. So to explain this, I have tested a demo. So in publisher side, I have made this configuration wall level logical. By default, we know it is replica. Replica will support up to only the streaming replication. So to support logical replication, we need to change a logical. And synchronous standby, I just enable synchronous standby for only this testing, but it is not necessary. And logical decoder set it as 1 MB. And publisher side created a table, and subscription side also created a table, because logical replication won't transfer any DDLs. So we need to create on our own on both subscriber and publisher side, and configure publication and subscriber for both these on both sides. So then I inserted a huge record. It took nearly 6.7 seconds in Postgres 13 to complete this without any streaming in progress transaction. By default method, it took nearly 6.7 seconds to commit on master and publisher and subscriber as well. Because I have configured synchronous replication, it means that it needs to acknowledge on subscriber and apply on subscriber as well. So after that, what I did is Postgres 14. Postgres 14 also, it is not enabled by default. We need to enable it by setting this variable streaming on. So once we did, I executed the same query in Postgres 14. It took nearly only 3.5 seconds. It is less than half. So we got nearly huge impact by using this feature. So it will really helpful to avoid replication lag in logical replication scenarios. And other than that, in compression side, they have introduced LZ4 toast compression. So before going to that, we need to know what is toast. In Postgres, we are having database size as 8 KB. So if you are exceeding 8 KB, means there will be a chance of page split. If page split happen, then it is not, it is an expensive process, and it is not irreversible. So we couldn't roll back if page split happens. To avoid that only, it is configured. So what it will, by default, it is 2 KB. Even though we are having 8 KB page size, they have configured it for only 2 KB. If we are crossed, if let's say if my tuple size is more than 2 KB, toast will pitch in. What it will do, basically, it will try to reduce my tuple size. Let's say I'm inserting a tuple and it is size is 5 KB, means it will first try to compress it first. If it compression works and it is become less than 2 KB, then it is okay. If it doesn't, means it will again, what it will do, it will split the data into many things and move it to the toast table. So, and it will have pointer in the original, just having the pointer in the original table, while fetching it, it will go to the toast table and get the results. So this is the way the toast works. So it is basically to avoid the page split. And every table will have its own toast table. Let's say you are just creating a table, new table, means it will have its own toast table, either it is using or not, but it will have its own. This is the compression method available for toast right now in up to Postgres 13. PGLZ inbuilt compression is available. In Postgres 14, what they did is they have introduced LZ4. New method is added. And also what they did is they have added default toast compression variable to choose either of this. And one more thing we need to keep that in mind, it is not merged with the core Postgres. So it won't be available by default. You need to compile the thing with -LZ4 option. Then only we can get this variable. Yeah. And another important thing is ideal session timeout. It is a new variable introduced in Postgres 14. This is the one new variable, and it is almost same like the purpose of idle in transaction session timeout. So I will explain what is idle in transaction session timeout. So first, this one is idle session timeout. By default, this value is 0 only. unit is millisecond, and context is user. It means that you can apply it for user level, or else you can even apply it for the instance level as well, and it doesn't require any restart also. So first, I will explain what is idle in transaction session timeout. It is available in Postgres for a very long time. It is available since Postgres 9.6. And what it is means is it means maximum allowed timeout between queries when in a transaction. So what it will do means basically you are starting a transaction, and if you are idle for some time means server will terminate your connection basically. This is the way it works. So it is also have the similar properties of post idle in session timeout. By default, it is disabled. To enable this, you need to set it either on user level, or else you can set it on instance level. Unit is millisecond. And also it is a pending there is no restart record, so it is false. So it means that no restart record, you can enable it on the fly itself. So to test this scenario, I have enabled opened a new session and set this variable to 2 seconds. It means that 2000 millisecond, and started a new transaction. I fired some query, it was working fine. I waited for 5 seconds. I set it to only 2 seconds and I waited for 5 seconds. What happened is server terminated my connection because I waited more than, I was idle for more than what I said. So that is the reason it was timed out. It will apply only for the transactions. So basically where it will help means it will helpful to terminate the open transaction in the database. So some of the buggy application, what they will do means basically they will start the transaction and they do some operations and they won't either commit or rollback. It will keep the transaction open. The problem will be that it will create a lot of undos, and also there is a chance of getting locks because of its open transaction. So having this variable and setting this variable very low value will help to killing those open transactions basically. So same method, idle session timeout was introduced, but only difference is it is not inside a transaction. It is only for the session. So considering I am setting this value as 5 second, it means that 5000 millisecond. I am performing some query. I haven't opened any transaction. I just performed a query within my session, and I am idle for more than 5 seconds, and you could see my session was terminated. So this is the reason. So only difference is that is inside a transaction, it is for the connection. So where it will helpful means for the server which is having very high number of idle connection, we can set it to very low value and it will terminate the connections quickly. And one more thing is it will apply only for the upcoming connections. So consider you are having high number of idle connections means, and you are setting this variable in global level, it will apply only for the upcoming connections. The existing connections won't get terminated because existing connections will use the old parameter. So you need to kill it or close it by application manually. And it should have higher value than application timeout. Let's say you are going to set this variable means you need to check with the developer team, and it should be really greater than the application timeout, or else before your application process something, your session will be closed by the database. So you will get the error in application. So it needs to be taken care. Yeah, so that's about the server side enhancement. Now we will see what are the improvements made in query parallelism. So first thing they have made it in good in refresh materialized view. So what it means is, so first we will see what is materialized view. Okay, so it is a database object basically. What it will do means it will store the result. So we know usually view what it will do, it will have the SQL, and it whenever we are calling the view, it will background, it will execute the SQL. But here, instead of executing the SQL, it will store the results. We will, if you are calling the materialized view, we will directly get the result. So that is the advantage. And to get the recent data, we need to refresh it very frequently. Then only we will get the the recent data, or else we will fetch the old thing. So basically where it will use means we are having some reporting queries and it will fetch a lot of resources means you can call it once and save it somewhere. Call it once using materialized view and you can access only materialized view. So you will get only the result. You won't execute the query again and again. So yeah. So to test this, I have the comparison in both Postgres 13 and Postgres 14. What I did is created a table with the two columns and inserted two group of records, one with value 1 and 200 and another with value 200. I did the same on Postgres 14 as well. You could see Postgres 14. So I executed the query with what it will give means it will give the output group by with the average and count of both the values. It is almost same. We could see both are 0.9 second in both Postgres 13 and Postgres 14. I created a metrolist view on Postgres 13 and Postgres 14. You could see it is also taking the same time. So what it happened is, while creating the metrolist view, it will also execute the query once. So what happen usually means it will execute the query and store the result in the metrolist view while executing creating it the first time. So further time onwards, we need to refresh it to update the statistics. So it took around almost same 0.9 second because it is also executing the query. So from now onwards, we don't need to execute that big query. We can just call the metrolist view to get the output. You could see I'm getting the same output here under both. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh the metrolist view because just consider in my source table, some records are updated. I need to refresh it means I'm refreshing it. In Postgres 13, you could see it is merely taking 2 seconds, more than 2 seconds basically. In Postgres 13, it is almost the same as the previous one. So what is the reason basically is Postgres 13 doesn't support parallelism only in the refresh metrolist view. It supports on create and it supports on all SQL executions, but it won't support only in the refresh metrolist view. But in Postgres 14, it supports it. So that is the reason Postgres 14 executes only in 0.9 second and Postgres 13 is taking 2 seconds. So this is the explain plan. So workers plan is 2 and this is the 2 parallel workers are used in Postgres 14. So yeah, refresh metrolist view. Other than refresh, remaining things, right? Other than refresh means that create SQL execution, everything will be used parallelism in less than Postgres 14. If you are using Postgres 14, if you are using lesser than Postgres 14, you can, instead of refreshing it, refresh metrolist view, you can just drop it and recreate it because it will take lot of time just for refreshing because there is no parallelism. It is better to just drop it and recreate. And one more thing, if you are using parallel refresh metrolist view, we need to know it will lock the content. While refreshing, none of the queries can't access it. We can use concurrent option, so it won't basically it won't lock the content. But to use the concurrent option, we need to have primary key or unique key without null value is mandatory, or else we can't. We will face a issue with locking. So this is about the refreshing metrolist review, the enhancement in Postgres. And also same thing like return query. In return query, right? A return query which will be using in the functions also use this one. Also supports parallelism from Postgres 14 onwards. Previously it won't. Now Postgres 14 also supports it. So now let's come to the point security improvement, which is really needed. So what it will do means default authentication method. First one is default authentication method. There is a change in default authentication method when compared with the previous releases after long time. So first one is previously MD5 hashing method was used as the default authentication method. What is the problem with this is MD5 hash sum is really easy to reconstruct. If some attacker got the hash means they are able to reconstruct the password very easily. So that is the reason, that is one of the problem with MD5. And what is the other options we got is Cramshaw 256, which is introduced in Postgres 10 itself. But now they have made it as default to improve more security, because if you are creating now any user in Postgres 14 means by default it will use Cramshaw 256 only. Previously it will use MD5 sum. And what is the advantage in Cramshaw 256? It will generate expensive hash function. So hash will be very strong. So it will be really difficult for attackers to crack it. That is the advantage with this Cramshaw 256. And before using this one, you need to make sure your client supports it or not. Either your application or PSQL version, make sure it is supports it, or else you will get error authentication method not supported. If you are using PSQL, you should be use more than version 10. Then only you can able to use Cramshaw 256. For application, you need to test your application once. And predefined role. They have introduced a few predefined roles in Postgres 14. Yeah, here that is PG read all data and PG write all data. Consider as a database administrator, you may got request. So just this, yeah. Consider database administrator, you may got request. You will get a lot of request daily to generate or giving access to some people. Mostly like consider you are got an access. You got a request to access. Complete us read access to a particular person means that what it will do means we need to generate lot of SQLs. We need to give grant usage on all the available schemas and grant select on all the tables. Basically it will give us lot of work to the database administrator. By using this predefined role, it will make the work very easier. So what to do, I will explain what this basically means. So to provide this, we need to be a super user basically. So other than super user, they can provide these roles to other user. And what it will do, it will completely provide access to the entire database, not only for schema or table. It will completely provide to the access to the complete database, both PG read all data and PG write all data. Consider you are going to give PG read all data to a particular user means what you are simply back and what you are doing means you are giving grant select on table view sequence and usage on all schemas. It is just making the thing easier, but backend it is doing the same thing. It will just give all the thing to the user. And same thing for write all data. So same select, instead of select, we are using insert, update, delete on all the objects, table, view, sequences, and usage access on all schemas, including the inside the database. So that is the difference. Just tested it, created a user and switched the role to the user. I couldn't execute any query because I don't given any grants. And I just reset it and I again go back to a super user and I granted read all data to that particular user and again switched my role to that user. And again, what I did is I executed the query. I could be able to execute it. I don't give any schema access or I didn't also give anything. I just given this role and I am able to perform all the read operations inside the database. Okay, other than security, there are a lot of features nearly for application developers. So first one is new JSON syntax. So JSON syntax is JSON supports from Postgres 9.2 itself. But what is the problem is it is having some unique syntax. It is not having the natural JSON syntax. It is having some unique syntax. If they are a JSON developer, they would feel it difficult for them to use it. So that is the problem with that syntax. So first one is the old syntax. You could see JSON. This is a second one is the new syntax. So they can use it very easily, this new syntax, and it will be really helpful for them to develop their codes. That is the advantage with the new JSON syntax. And another important thing is multi-range data types. So before need to know what is multi-range, we need to see a lot of range and how the previous data types are available as well. So range is that we need to know what is range, right? So it will be having beginning and end value. So range means we know all should have some start and end point. It may be like some place or end point and date time or integer as well. So usual thing we would say, right, this training is running, but this and this station. So it means that some range we are defining. So in classic syntax, right, classic SQL, whether we are not using any range function or anything, we need to prepare our statement like this. So considering I'm developing an app and I'm creating it just to monitor what are the apps used and which time. Okay, so it will be having app name and the start time of the app and the closing time of the app basically. So I have created a table. So I'm using two columns, start time with the timestamp and end time with the timestamp. So I just loaded some data into it. So what is the problem with this is basically I have created two timestamp columns just to notify start and end of the database. Okay. And range is that, right? Select start from I can see app name with the start and end time as well. So where the problem will arise means whenever you need to fetch some particular record or you need to fetch more number of records means your SQL will get bigger. That is the problem with classic SQL. So I will show. So here is this requirement. So you are getting you need to fetch the app which is used between 11 and 12 p.m. means you can easily get this one. Okay. So consider you are getting another requirement. You need to fetch the record of the apps used between 11 and 12 And also between evening 5 to 6 also, you need to include or and you need to add like this. So if you are having multiple records means your SQL will become very bigger. Okay, that is the problem with classic SQL. So to avoid this, Postgres 9 series itself, they have introduced a range data type. Okay, so instead of creating it using two columns, start and end, you can simply use TS range column. Okay, so it will store both the values. So start time and end time in the same column. You don't need to create two columns basically. So this will be the same thing I am doing here as well. I could perform it. So what is the one more advantage here is I could modify, I could either reduce or increase the time limit. Let's say I'm using ID, I'm going to modify ID3, okay. I'm using this from 11 to 9 o'clock. I'm going to reduce half an hour, 11 to, I'm going to deduct 11 to 11:30 from here means I am able to do that, okay. So you could see my updated record is having only 11:30 to 9 o'clock. I am able to reduce the half an hour. But what happened while I'm trying to, now it is from 11 to 9 o'clock. I would like to reduce something between 12 to 12:30. It is in between the range, but I am unable to do that because range supports only one range previously. So if you are splitting it into two means it will let to into the two range values 11:30 to 12 and 12:30 to 9. It won't support it. That is the reason we are getting the error. To support this as well, they have introduced a multi-range. What it will do means the same thing I have created with the multi-range column. Okay, just do everything as like same. And I'm what I'm going to do means 11:30 to 9. I'm going to reduce half an hour intermediately. So 12 to 12:30, I'm going to reduce it. So you could see the result. I'm able to successfully got the positive result, and also 11 o'clock to 12 and 12:30 to 9 o'clock. So my result into splitted into two values. So that is the reason it is supporting multi values. I could save multiple range values inside my record. So that is the reason. So it supports multi-range. It will really helpful to reduce lot of SQL level changes for application developers. And out parameter. So previously Postgres won't support out parameter, and also in earlier releases before version 11, right? Postgres only support function. 11 onwards they support stored procedure. In stored procedure as well, it supports only in and in out parameter. It won't support any out parameter basically. So what is the problem with this is if you are planning to migrate from Oracle to Postgres, in Oracle mostly out parameter support. So many people would use out parameter. If you need to migrate means you need to rewrite all your codes from out to in out. So it will be a lot of work. But Postgres 14 onwards it supports out. It will reduce lot of these conversions and it will be really helpful for people who are migrating from Oracle to Postgres. Yeah. And one more thing is what are the enhancements made in monitoring level? There are a lot of system use introduced in Postgres 14. We can't cover all. So I have added one important view that is pgstat progress copy. So basically what it will do means it will show us the progress of the copy statement. We know we usually copy CSV files and load into the database. Okay. What it will do, if it is smaller size means it will get completed very quickly. If it is huge in size means it will take really a lot of time and we don't know when it will get complete. So we need to just wait. We don't have any progress on that. So from Postgres 14 onwards, we could see the progress of whatever we are data loading into it. So this is the stat name, okay, system view name. You could see select star from pgstat progress copy. If there is no copy process running on the server means it will show empty result. If there's something is, I mean, if you are loading something means it will show result. So to test this, I have loaded some data on one session. Okay, will contain 10 million records. I have loaded 10 million records CSV file into the database. On the other side, I could see continuously monitoring. It started printing the records. So to simplify this, I have removed some of the unwanted columns. So this is the one. So you could see tuple processor means that number of records processed so far. Considering I am having 10 million records in my CSV file means tuple process means number of files processed so far. So out of 10 millions, so first, second line, I could see it process 7 lakh and third, it could see it processed 1 million like that. And once it is completed, it will again show empty only. So where it will be helpful means if you are loading huge data means you could monitor it, or else if you are doing it for continuously means you can just configure a script with the CSV file lines and a tuple processor and send like a Slack or mail notification like how much processor so far with percentage and all. It can be done. And one more improvements made in Postgres 14 is enhancement. There are a lot of enhancements made in PG stat statements. So which is like, so before that, some may not know about PG stat statement. It is just an intro. It is really a very helpful extension for to troubleshoot the performance kind of issue, because what it will basically do means it will completely track all the statistics of all the SQLs executed in the database. Even if you are executing some query means it will show whether it is a disk read or memory from, or how many times it is executed. It will show all the details, and it is completely inexpensive. Okay, you don't need to worry about whether it will affect the performance or not. It is completely inexpensive and supports in all infra, either it is AWS, Aurora, or RDS. You can use it. It is supported in many of the infrastructures, and you can load this data into Grafana for systematic view. Mostly you can use simply PMM. PMM is a very helpful tool. You can definitely use it. And one more thing is it will just store the value in hash. Let's say I'm using select star from some table name with the var class some value means, instead of storing the value directly, it will convert into hash only. So this is the sample one. In second one, you could see, right, second record. Instead of I have used some integer, okay, user ID is some value, but instead of that, it is using $1 only. So it won't directly store the value, it will use only the hash. And also calls means that number of times each query was called. That is the advantage here. So what is the problem with the current PG statement is we don't have idea when the query happened. You could see it is just showing us how many times it was executed, but from since or when it started to store this data, we don't have any idea of it. It may be yesterday or it may be last month. So these stats won't be available in Postgres 13 or lesser versions, and we can't find queries with exact values. Some of the queries may try to optimize, but for the getting the value, we need to get help from developers. So those values we can't get it. So we need to. These are the problems with the existing PG statements. So to avoid this, they had introduced two features in this Postgres 14. So first one is they had introduced PG statement info. So basically what it will do means it will show from when your PG stat statement table containing the, storing the stats. So I could see it will just always return only one record, and it will show when the last time PG statement table was reset. And from that time onwards, we are having the query stats basically. So that is the reason. So basically we can get what is the time range of our queries from when we are having these query stats. And second one is new prefix q was added. So along with the query, query ID will also get logged into the data error log file. So we can get the query ID from the PG start statement table, and we can grep it on the error log. So we can get to, finally we can get the exact query with values as well from the error log. So this is the option to get the queries with exact values. And also one more column is added in PG stat table, that is rows, number of rows affected, or number of, if you are selecting means number of rows retrieved, if you update or insert means number of rows inserted or number of rows updated, or if deleting means number of rows also deleted. It could be really useful for administrative purpose. If someone deleted huge number of records means it will get easily captured here in this table as well. Yes, final. And if you are planning for upgrade means you need to choose whether either logical upgrade or physical upgrade. We have only two options, logical or physical. Logical means that PG dump or PG dump all. Physical means you know that PG upgrade. Both the things supported by Postgres 14 as well. So always perform dry run as it is a major version upgrade. And one more thing you need to keep that in mind. Well, if you are migrating from version less than version 12, it means that 9.5 or 10 or something to 12, 13 or 14 means you need to perform re-indexing, because there is a change in index pages at version 12. So to get the benefits of the index changes in after version 12 and all, you need to perform re-index. Otherwise it will work, but we won't get the benefits. And analyze needs to be performed as always. And also one more thing, perform functional testing to avoid failures of the queries while performing the major version updates. Yeah, these are the references that you can use for before performing upgrade or just want to learn, go through it. So it will be really helpful. Yeah, that's it, guys. Any questions?
Thank you, Akash, for another astounding session on the latest upgrade of Postgres. Okay, I hope the session has helped our attendees to, to answer certain questions what they had. And if they have any more questions, I would request you to please place in your questions in the Q&A tab, or you can just simply raise your hand. I can unmute you so that you can ask the speaker by yourself. Okay, Akash, we have a question from Shanmugaraj. Is there any side effects of setting, ideal in transaction session timeout?
Yeah, ideally in transactions, etc. Right? So there is no side effect. Only thing is we need to coordinate properly with the application team. Okay, so it will basically kill the query which is exceeding more than the particular idle time. So if application will perform the same thing means we need to set it higher, or else some buggy behavior means we can set it. Other than that, there won't be any issue in setting lower value.
Great. I hope it answers the question for Shanmugaraj. Any more questions from our attendees? Thank you, Akash, once again. So now that we have completed the 10th edition of my webinar, I would like to also invite you for our 11th open source meetup, which we have planned to schedule for the 13th of November, which also falls on a Saturday, and that is between 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we will be able to send you the invite for the meetup also very soon. And we also request everybody to join the meetup and elevate our 11th meetup to the highest level. It has been an honor to be among such accomplished individuals and to be able to present our perception in front of you all. Thank you for being here today and patiently listening to what we have to say. I wish you all a blessed day and a prosperous year ahead. Thank you all once again.